acknowledge that we are gathered on the traditional lands of the Wurundjeri people. We want to recognise that we are recording and telling our stories on the stolen land of our country's first storytellers. We wish to pay our respects to all Wurundjeri elders and ancestors, and to extend that respect to any First Nations peoples who listen to Emsolation. We recognise Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples' continued connection to the land and waters of this country, and acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded. Always was, always will be.
Well, hello there and welcome to Emsolation. My name is Rusciano. I'm a writer, a singer, a stand-up comedian, a maximalist power queen, a neurodivergent magic brain, and together with my best friend since I was 11, award-winning screenwriter Michael Lucas, I bring you this podcast every week. How are you? If you're new here and you're wondering, oh yeah, what has Michael Lucas written? Why has he won awards? Well, let me tell you, he wrote a little show called Offspring. Yeah, he's the man responsible for Patrick, leaving this earthly realm. He also wrote, created, EP'd, did everything except star in the smash hit Newsreader. Yeah, that one. He also wrote 5 Bedrooms. He wrote on Rosehaven. Look, this man has been everywhere. All the awards and accolades are totally deserved. So just a little, bio. Sometimes I know I say that he's an award-winning writer and, you're like, oh, yeah, prove it to me. Well, hopefully you feel that. Like, I don't know why I am bigging him up. If you are a regular listener of Emsolation, you'll know that over the weekend the betrayal occurred. That's right. Michael Lucas attended Beyonce's concert in London after having purchased the tickets in secret a month ago. And he broke it to me on the podcast. There's a lot to catch up on if you haven't caught up. But he did go to the show over the weekend. I woke up to many videos. It seems he had a wonderful time. We haven't actually spoken about it yet because we were saving it for the podcast. But he and I are not doing a podcast this week because I'm coming to you live from under my doona cover. I'm trying to put on a brave voice, but I don't think it's working. I've had COVID since last Friday. And it has invaded every cell of my being. Season 2 of COVID it's a strong one, has a strong plot line. It's really taken me out. So I was unable to get into the studio this week. Michael and I will be back next week to discuss the concert in full, but we're holding off actually chatting on the phone about it. Look, we're dedicated to our craft and our art, if nothing else. Yes, podcasting can be called art. How dare you for raising an eyebrow? I'll keep it brief because I imagine my voice is not sounding, I think we've gone past sexy phone operator. Do they even have those anymore because of the internet? I remember being obsessed with the idea of the phone, the sex line that people could call, and a woman would probably sit there folding her washing for the week but putting on a voice. I sound more like Carlotta, don't I? I digress. Today's chat is wonderful. I'm joined by the youngest ever senator to be sitting in Australian Parliament. I speak of the Green Senator, Jordon Steele-John. He is passionate and driven and, I believe, totally bullshit-free on most fronts. Honestly, sitting with a politician for over an hour in the past has been quite challenging for me, but I felt like Jordon didn't block me on any question. He answered as best he could. He was direct. And I also walked away feeling so relieved to have a champion like Senator Jordon Steele-John for the NDIS, the National Disability Insurance Scheme. For any of you who have a child with disabilities or if you are in the scheme yourself, you'll know that it is a system that is, well, it kind of feels like it's designed to work against us at times. Jordon is in there fighting for it, fighting against the cuts. He's also behind the Senate inquiry that's about to close, that's happening into ADHD. And he really wants to address what people with ADHD are being given and the gap to what they actually need from the government. He was wonderful, and I know you're going to love it, and that's enough from me and my voice. I hope you're all well. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, you are so welcome. Please go back and listen to our back catalogue, and you can also subscribe. We have an Emsolation Extra. service provider, not like the 90s phone line, but look, you pay enough, you never know what you might get from me in your inbox. Oh God, that sounded ominous. All the information can be found at emsolation.supercast.com. All right, please enjoy my chat with Senator Jordon Steele-John. Play the music.
Rusciano and Michael Lucas. This is Emsolation.
Disabled and proud. Straight off the bat, your background.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get the whole thing in while also, that's still a loop.
I love that. My lizard brain wants to say Jordon John Steele so bad. You don't understand how.
That is so okay.
No, it's not.
Okay. I get so many combinations of my name. Jordon John Steele, Steele-John Jordon.
I don't know why. I just have to really stop, put the handbrake on and say it the right way around. And as someone who's grown up with Emilia Rusciano, you can only imagine what people have done to that name. So, no.
Well, they said it correctly, spelled it correctly, always is absolutely what I imagine they've done.
Senator Jordon Steele-John of the Greens, youngest member of Parliament. Proud disabled man. Welcome.
Proud disabled person.
Can we start there? I read your piece Growing Up Disabled in Australia and it made me cry.
Oh.
No, I think you made me realise my own internalised ableism. And I think the piece, and everyone needs to read it, you in a way indirectly recognised, and you're a man who lives with cerebral palsy, you use a chair in your everyday life, you have a visible disability. No one would argue with you and say you're not disabled enough, which is something my community gets a lot in terms of the neurodivergent community. But for me, if even someone who has a visible disability, but this is a strange combo because you were brought up by such an extraordinary woman.
Yes, indeed.
That's why you had internalised ableism, for lack of a better term, around your disability. You didn't view yourself as disabled. Can you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I think as disabled people who are like born into a world that is constructed, controlled, overwhelmingly by rich, white, able-bodied blokes, right?
Yeah.
We're born, in my case, with bodies, and in your case, with brains that function in ways that divert from the norm, right? And the understanding in this context, the norm is constructed. It's a social construct. It doesn't actually exist. And so from that moment that we come into the world with our different bodies and different brains, we are told by people in positions of power that we are somehow broken, somehow lesser, and that for normal people, inverted commas, normal people, we will be, inconvenience, burden, heavy upon them. Not what they would have wanted, right? And this is absolutely not true, but this is what we're told. And so we all, in some way or another, kind of take that into ourselves. And it's a lifetime's journey in some ways to pull it out of ourselves and to push back on it. Now, what my mum did was give me such a strong sense of self. As somebody who'd been a social worker for 20 years in the UK, as somebody who had worked with kids that had not kind of, to use the phrase, like had not fit, they were the square pegs that didn't fit in the round holes. And either they just didn't fit, or when someone was banging on their heads trying to bash them into the holes, it shaved the corners off. And so she never wanted it to happen to me and never wanted that to happen to my brother. And so I was homeschooled and developed that strong sense of self. But still, you live in a world that says you're different, you're broken, you're lesser. And so the way I kind of processed that was going like, disability is part of who I am, but it doesn't define me. You know, I'm doing that hokey cokey dance. And it wasn't until I met part of the journey of moving from that identity into being a proud disabled person was meeting neurodivergent people, particularly neurodivergent women, who a very good friend of mine said to me when I met them 10 years ago, and I did this whole spiel very proudly, you know, disability is part of who I am, but it doesn't define me. And they were like, cool, Jordan, but you just said you're a person with disability. That's like me saying I'm a person with womanness. Like, that doesn't make any sense. And no matter how much you're positive about having a disability or about like having a positive outlook on life, no amount of like, I can do it, will turn the staircase into a ramp. So you've got to have a more systemic view than that. And that was really part of my journey, like the beginning of that process.
Oh, my goodness. I feel uncomfortable identifying as disabled, and I officially qualify in 2 categories.
Yeah.
But I feel like I don't deserve to occupy that space or take up the oxygen in that room. And I know a lot of other neurodivergent people feel the same.
Yeah, they absolutely do.
And I'm not sure if I'm doing a disservice to the ND community by not occupying that space, or am I taking up oxygen from other people who are more profoundly disabled? Do you see what I mean? So when...
Oh, I absolutely do, yeah.
I'm not sure, Jordan, and this is why I really wanted to talk to you, but just as 2 people who don't fit the norm, but, you know, when people look at us, you're in a chair, I am disorganised and blunt, and I think when people look at us, they're like, well, Jordan is disabled and he's fine to occupy that space, of course, but I challenge people's notions of that. So I don't know. Can you can you help me navigate these very intense feelings right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I can give it a red hot go. Like I think the first thing I would say to you, Em, is however you feel about yourself and your identity, like that is okay and that is valid. Wherever you are on the journey as somebody who is neurodivergent, from, you know, the internalized ableism that you pick up from the moment you come into that world, to, you know, wherever you are in your self-identification process, that's valid. And so if you're out there listening to this as a neurodivergent person that identifies as being disabled, fantastic. If you're out there, you know, somebody from the community that doesn't feel that way, that is also okay and good. Because the first and foremost, like the first piece of this is what makes us as people feel empowered, right? So if you find identifying as a disabled person empowering, do. If you don't yet, like that's also okay. I would say that for me, I am very comfortable with people that are neurodiverse, identifying as disabled people, because to me, I go like, my body don't function the way that why am I doing that accent? My body don't function the way.
I love it. You've gone full Dick Van Dyke, Mary Poppins.
I really have, eh? I'm love the life. Anyway, let's pull this back slightly. So my body doesn't function in the way that is expected to, right? By the societal norm. And that therefore, as part of that divergence from the norm, I am part of a broader community that have a similar divergence of 4 million people in Australia that identify as disabled. So I'm part of that community. I'm also a person that like requires different modifications, supports, changes to that status quo to support me to be able to participate in society, right? And in my brain, to my thought process, somebody who's neurodivergent in whatever way, like there's similarities there, right? Like it's not the body, it's the brain, but there's still a requirement there's still a membership of a community of people that share a similar experience. And there's also a need for modification and change to the environment, to the society, to the culture, to enable people's rightful participation. So I see that link, and therefore the more people that identify as disabled, to me, I'm like, great, there's more people in the gang. We can work together towards a shared goal.
One of the most important women in my life she's my production manager, my EA, Gem. She's also lives with cerebral palsy. And she is the fiercest. Because her whole life has been advocacy, basically for herself.
Yeah.
I feel like there's this idea around the disabled community that they're not fierce advocates and that they need, I don't know. I just feel like you and her, everyone I've ever met, Ellie de Michelier as well.
Yeah.
The fiercest community possible. And I would be honored to be a part of that community. But for me, it's more like an imposter syndrome. I don't know. It's like,
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So, of course, and my son is autistic and more severely autistic than me, and a lot of people I care about, and I am technically in the disabled community. And then I've become more aware of your work, and I want you to know, and I know this may come across as twee, but when I told people I was talking to you, the first thing I got back was, please thank him.
Oh, wow.
Well, you must be aware you're the first person in federal politics to actually have lived experience in the areas you're advocating for or you want to see changes in. And we have a habit in this country of, say, putting men in as the Minister for Women.
Yeah. Yes.
And,
that was a bad thing we shouldn't do again.
That was wild. But I think you are a prime example of what can happen when, the person with lived experience of the issue they're trying to change and make better, when that comes together, shit happens. Good shit happens for that community. And everyone just wanted to say, you don't have to do this. You don't have to advocate for ADHD. Yet you are. And I guess I wanted to ask you, why are you bothering with us when there's so many bigger things that you're in charge of, especially like reforming the NDIS entirely. You've come to the aid of 500,000 of us, but there's way more. There's so many people who are just self-identifying because it's too hard to get the diagnosis, which we'll talk to. Why did you decide ADHD would get your special love and attention?
Well, I think, look, first of all, thank you so much. I've got to reflect a bit of this kind of mutual appreciation. But particularly, your speech at the National Press Club, I watched that. My mum watched that particularly, and she had her moment of, oh, wow, that's me, and began her ADHD diagnosis journey based on that experience, and that has been huge for mum. So I've got to reflect back to you the incredible impact that your work has had, not only on my family, but so many people we work with in this space reflect that back to us. And I think, part of what is wonderful, part of what I am really excited about in terms of the work that we've been able to do, myself and my team and the Greens in this space, has been to build and to contribute to the building of a disability pride movement over the past 4 or 5 years, particularly. We've really emphasised that. You might have got a sense of that from the massive disabled and proud banner behind me. But part of what that has been about is about bringing together this community of 4 million people across Australia who are both subject to incredible discrimination at the hands of an ableist society and an ableist power structure, and have also the most incredible power, the most incredible capacity for innovation and for collaboration and community building. I've demonstrated that again and again and again. And as part of that process, part of that building that movement, we've had the opportunity to work with so many incredible neurodivergent activists and advocates who have contributed, I think, to that disability movement discourse, a real clear biting critique of cultural norms and the way that cultural norm and practice perpetuates power, and particularly an analysis of why neurodivergent women and people that basically aren't cis men who are neurodivergent, particularly are subject to so much incredibly unacceptable pushback because of the way in which that community challenges the fundamental cultural power structure of our society. And as part of that work, we continually heard from people the incredible barriers that folks with ADHD experienced as part of accessing support, well, so-called support systems, the medical system, the assessment, diagnosis, medication processes. We kept again and again hearing about these barriers. And so really, as part of building that disability pride movement, we decided, it really is time to go to that particular part of the community and go, what's happening? What's going on here? What's the experience
You did. You did.
of these systems and processes? And that's why we kind of put the survey into the world, and the extent of the response was just incredible. So from that we went, right, we're going to get our teeth into this, and we're going to champion change together with the community.
The survey, 10,000 respondents within a couple of weeks when you're only expecting, 1,000 in a month is extraordinary. But I'm amazed you got 10,000, because if you ask people like me to fill out surveys, well, just like, that's like, ugh. Imagine all the people who gave up. I'm amazed you got 10,000, which just goes to show it's such an underserviced area. And I know when I was giving the speech, when I was asked to give it, I felt the pressure of this community that doesn't get a platform very often. And, I'm just so grateful that someone like you is putting your significant, like you're relentless, Jordon. You just give zero fucks about anything that gets in your way. It's so rare in politics. I can't tell you. And all of us are just like hanging on to your coattails going, fuck yes, keep going, please. So I think, you did the survey, and the takeaways, when I read your takeaways, I was like, yeah, obviously. So, the cost, the length of time it takes, and also just being believed. And my own experience with that is like, it's potluck. If you can get into a psychiatrist in this country, that's amazing. But if you are unlucky enough to get an older male psychologist who's not up to date with the DSM, which is a lot of them, the first psych I saw basically said that he doesn't believe women experience autism. And it's usually like borderline personality disorder or something else. So that for me is so scary that if you go to a GP, especially as a woman, it's potluck on if that GP is up to date with recent medical advancements, in recognising ADHD, or if they even believe in it beyond 10-year-old boys. So that's, for me, Jordon, that's unacceptable. And the first line of defence, that being able to go to a medical professional and be believed. And I love doctors, and I know doctors are doing their best, and I know they're very, they're under the pump at the moment. But that for me feels like the first thing that needs to change. How do we, how? How?
So I think first thing I'd say is it is absolutely unacceptable, right? Going to a medical professional, having that experience is not okay. And I'd say that as the Greens health spokesperson, and, if anyone's got a problem with that, come at me. It's not like, that's not.
There he is.
That's not an acceptable way to treat a patient, right? No. It's not an acceptable way to treat a person. And through the course of the survey, we heard from many people who had some really bad experiences from the medical system, where they had been dismissed, which is not okay, which they had seen, basically had the experience of basically the GP had said, you are, not a young boy, therefore you can't have ADHD, which is not true and not okay. We had the people share with us that they had gone for assessment or indeed for prescriptions around medications. People have said, "Oh, I don't want to be known as that kind of doctor, that gives out those kind of medications." That's not acceptable. These types of medical stigma, not okay, and they are far too prevalent in our community. We also heard the financial barriers being profound. The cost of assessment running into thousands of dollars, which is completely unattainable for many people. We heard of, in fact, there was one experience that really stuck in my mind was somebody that shared like a additional detailed story as part of the survey response. And they said they had been unable to access a diagnosis for 5 years due to not having enough money. So they had to struggle through university, getting their degree, undiagnosed with their mental health deteriorating. Then they had to try to get a job all before they could get their diagnosis, right? To get the degree, to get the job, to get the money, to get the diagnosis. And they summed it up as it was like being asked to climb a mountain. And the first half, you're not allowed to wear any shoes. That really stuck with me as the injustice of this system is one where people often have to struggle so hard just to get the diagnosis before we even get to the medication, just to get the diagnosis. And then if you are somebody that goes, okay, well, the support for me looks like medication, then you ram into needing to get a psychiatrist.
Oh my God.
Affording one.
Yeah.
Then paying for the medication. And then if you lose or don't have a Medicare card, the additional cost of the meds. And it just goes up and up and up. And that's why people often talk about the neurodiversity and disability being really expensive. Like it costs money to be a neurodiverse person. And it's really it's quite not okay. It's a polite way of putting it. And these are the kind of things that I really hope this inquiry now can investigate further, to make recommendations to address these issues, and then together we can campaign, the Greens, the disability community, the neurodiverse community, together to actually bring down these barriers.
Can you explain, so the Senate inquiry is currently happening, people have until June 3, is that right?
The 9th of June.
9th of June to fill out their lived experiences, to inform and educate people who don't understand why something like ADHD should be added to the NDIS as a primary, condition. But the cynical among us are like, Canberra love a Senate inquiry. Like, they love it. It feels like a stalling tactic. It feels like, we looked into it and Can you let everyone know, and me, I'm everyone.
Yes, I'm aware. I'm talking to every person in Australia.
Yeah, what change a Senate inquiry can actually affect. Do you know, you understand why people are cynical around?
I do.
Yeah, what happens? Tell us.
Yeah, what happens? I really understand why people are cynical. Because unfortunately, I spend a lot of my time working alongside politicians, and you bang on. Like, one of government's favourite responses is, we've heard a lot about this, and it's very important that we hear some more. So we're going to do an inquiry, and then an inquiry, and into an inquiry, and so on, and then nothing ever happens. So I understand that cynicism. Why I think let me tell you why I kind of think this is different.
Okay.
We have a situation in Australia where, if you look back over the last 5 years, and kind of search for references to ADHD in the political space, there literally is no substantive discussion of ADHD. The reference in the official parliamentary record is me, and then me talking about it, and then a couple of other MPs just mentioning it in passing. A few of them to deny that it exists.
Oh, God.
So that's cool
and
normal. Not at all. Not okay. There actually is a real, and there's been no debate in terms of legislation or bills or anything like this.
No.
So there actually is a need for a dedicated a parliamentary investigation, so that we can take the community, basically the community feedback and the demands for change that are building so effectively, and basically have them recorded in an official space, will then translate into the creation of a set of recommendations. Now, the bit that I'll be really upfront with you about is that once we've gathered that information, kind of boiled it down into a report and a set of recommendations and gone, here, this is what we should do. Then there will be a moment of where the Greens, the disability community and the neurodivergent community will have to campaign together to actually have those things implemented. Because, it should be the case, given that, we pay politicians a lot of money to apparently do a job, that it should be that, we make the recommendations and then they just do the thing. But often there's the resistance, right, which there shouldn't be. But if there is in this circumstance, then we'll need to campaign for the outcome together. But there will finally be a document that says what everyone's been saying, like kind of in the community for so long, which is, it needs to be on the NDIS. We need to make it free to have diagnosis under Medicare, all these other kind of things that we've been talking about for so long. It'll exist and we'll be able to campaign kind of on it together.
Okay. So what you're saying is hold tight until we have the recommendations and then we go to war.
That's exactly what I was saying.
Okay, I can do that.
I think you can take away from this. Senator declares war on ableism. I think that's a perfectly fair headline.
All right. We'll call the podcast episode that.
Yeah. No, please don't do that. As the literally one of my portfolios is peace and defense. So if it's like peaceful and non-violent declaration of
it's fine. Yeah.
war, that'll be okay.
Oh my goodness. I have to deal with the NDIS for my son, and you're obviously. Right. I'm not even bothering for myself. It's not a good experience, and I love that my job enables me to give you that direct feedback. I mean, you don't run the NDIS; it's not your fault, but you know this obviously as a participant. And again, like how many federal politicians, how many senators are on the NDIS? Like, are you the only one?
Well, so I'm actually not on the NDIS myself.
Oh, you're not?
I know. I've fallen into this very grey area of people where when the NDIS rolled out into my area, you get the kind of like the Hogwartian letter saying, it's now in your area, you can come and be on the thing.
Yeah.
That was the same year that I was elected.
Oh.
And so because of all of the kind of craziness of life that developed from there, it's always been on my list of things to do when I get a moment. And so I've basically made sure that I've got the wheelchair that I need to get around. Yeah. And then everything else has just been go, try and use this role to make it easier for other people to access the NDIS
Jordon.
And get the services and supports they need. So I've not yet taken the step.
Well, let me tell you, sir, it's a shitty process.
Oh, I know.
And I don't. The hardest thing for me was being asked to exaggerate the worst attributes about my son's autism to try and get my son help. It was extremely traumatic, and even getting a carer at the kinder with him. And Elio is, he doesn't have a physical disability. His autism is, it's more, I guess, I don't even know what the right term is. He more needs help with the social and sensory stuff.
Yeah, it's an invisible disability.
Yeah, his is. And to get someone at the kinder with him, we had to say that we thought he was a danger to himself or the other kids. And that's the only way the kinder could get funding to have. And I just said, no, I'm not saying that because it's not true. So the kinder can't get funding to have someone there for my son who is on the NDIS, who qualified easily. And the only way, if I had have lied and had have said that about him, and he's gentle and loving and he's not a danger. And I just think, why does it have to be the extremes to get a person who could, the early intervention for him is going to make the rest of his life so much easier. Yeah. But we can't get that for him because he's not deemed dangerous enough. To me, that feels backwards.
It's totally backwards and not okay. and actually not how the NDIS was meant to function. Like often I talk about the NDIS as like our NDIS. And when I say that, what I mean is it's a scheme, it's a support program that was brought into existence because of the campaigning of disabled people, our families, and our allies. We brought this thing into existence. We campaigned for it. Nobody gave it to us out of the goodness of their own heart. We said, right, this is what we need to be able to live. This old system is crap. We need something better. And what we campaigned for was a system that basically provided you the supports that you needed to live a good life, services and supports, and that those supports and services would be guided by three things. One, your lived experience. So what you as a disabled person know of your support needs. Two, your goals and aspirations. So what do you want to achieve in your life? Let's get beyond just existing, like existing. What do you want to actually do? Do you want to, like what educational things do you want to attain? What does it mean to have a fulfilled life to you? And number three, what medical evidence do you have that guides and supports and backs that up? But critically, medical evidence that you have like attained, or evidence of some other time that you've attained from a medical practitioner or other person that you trust. You have built a relationship with and who knows you and your needs. And that, my friend, was meant to be it. Nothing else. And that's actually what we had in the initial trial sites where it was being rolled out. And then the Liberals got into government and they buggered it up. Because they are terrible, is my short political analysis of the Liberal Party. And now we have an opportunity to, now that they've been, kind of flushed down the political toilet, to try to fix it. But what I often see in the NDIS is systems that exist that have been built by politicians and bureaucrats who are not disabled people, that then we have to try to navigate. And one of them is exactly as you've just described, the feeling, the culture that's created of you have to basically say that you're dangerous to get any kind of support if that support is like for a non easily recognized or traditional disability type. And that is just not okay. To ask a parent to describe their child as dangerous is absolutely unacceptable. And then on the other side of it, of course, you've got this thing where often disabled people, when we're in an assessing environment, like, I don't know whether you might have a similar experience, but like somebody says, like, do you need help with that? And your reflexive response is like, no, I'm fine.
No, we mask. Straight away masking comes in.
Yeah.
And also my awareness of what this room expects of me right now versus what I actually want and need. Like it's definitely instinctual for sure. That I think, yes. I didn't know. Right. Okay.
So I mask too. Like, I think masking is masking in that sense of like, I'm fine. I don't need help to do that.
No, I don't want to be a burden. I'm not a burden. What are you talking about?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So what that then means is that you come out of your NDIS meeting with not enough, because you've gone there on maybe a good day, or you've gone there, after something in your life has kind of made you start telling a story about the less support you need, the more of a good person you are, which is nonsense. That's not true. Like, we need to break that idea of like the best form of person is the individual man who can just on their own, stride out into the wilderness and slash down a pigeon and eat it raw, or whatever the hell that kind of meme of self-independence is equals good. We've got to get rid of that. Because then what happens is, if everyone's calibrated towards only funding people that, sound dangerous, then people don't get the support they need. So there's a whole bunch of shit we need to do to to kind of fix that system.
There's a whole bunch of shit. I've never heard a truer word spoken.
That's the technical term.
You're right. And I'm telling you, Jordan, every person, if they listening now, if they ever get an opportunity to vote for you in anything, you will be remembered as someone saying, yeah, there's a whole bunch of shit that needs to be fixed and I'm doing my best, guys. Like, that is so important to hear from you, from a politician. You don't, I mean, I know you know, but fuck, but like, how do you, I feel overwhelmed. I don't have executive function, as we know, but how do you prioritize what to fix within the NDIS? Like, it feels like a big pit. Like, realistically, what do you think is the first thing that's going to, what do you reckon, like, is achievable and will happen first?
Well, I think, first of all, I would say we've got to, like, before you even get into, like, what's the first thing you need to do, you need to tackle this idea of achievability in government. Because this is one of these nonsense things that politicians and the major parties put out there. Well, we just can't do it. There's just not enough money. You know, like, it couldn't do it. And I'll just give you a quick example of what that looks like. Again and again, we work with community members who are being denied basic services and supports based on the premise that those services and supports are either too complicated to deliver or too expensive, like not value for money for the NDIS. And we've got backwards and forwards for years, sometimes fighting for like what somebody needs to get up out of bed and have a shower every day, you know? So we do that on one hand with government, and then on the other hand, just a couple of months ago, the federal government just comes out and says, hey, everyone, we're going to spend $368 billion on the acquisition of 8 nuclear submarines that won't be delivered until, like, I'm 60 years old. We've never run a nuclear anything before in Australia. It will require a massive nuclear waste dump that will be with us for millions of years. Hey, thanks, everybody. That's fine. Bye. So it's a complete double standard of the system there. So what I say is, in terms of achievable is defined as, does it deliver what people need? Like, literally, the NDIS should deliver what people need in the way that they need it, where and when they need it. And that should be the simple goal. So measured against that metric, and in terms of how we pay for it, we make rich people pay their fair share of tax, we make corporations pay their fair share of tax, and we don't buy 8 nuclear submarines. Let's not do that. How about instead of doing that, let's not. So basically, if you do those things, then what can you do? You can make sure that every single person, brace yourself for this, Em, every single person that rings the NDIS will be able to speak to a human being. And we'll be able to have an individual planner with the powers to change their plan. They'll be able to follow them through their life as a participant, gaining the knowledge and understanding of that individual's support needs.
And imagine if we hired people at the NDIS who are actually disabled, who actually have experience with the people that they're helping make the plans of. So when I say I need an OT to help with my sensory issues, the person on the other end is like, oh man, halogen lights are the worst. Like, they get it. Whereas I am abled until proven disabled, it feels like.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you need to be able to hire more people so that you can have a better experience with those people. They need to be trained properly.
Yeah.
So that there's this discrimination that we often hear of, people having the experience of like, but is Down syndrome a permanent condition? Like, those kind of things are still problems that we have. We need better ICs. This sounds a bit nerdy, but you actually need a ICT system that allows the capturing of the complexity of a person's life in that system so that they can tell their story once, not have to retell it, and that information is transferred. So, for instance, at the moment, you have to list your primary and secondary disability. Now, if I'm somebody with a physical disability, say, with cerebral palsy, and I'm also an autistic person, there's no such thing as a primary disability in that context. That's ridiculous. So we've got to tackle things like that, and also a radical notion of like people being able to see a draft plan Wouldn't that be great? Being able to see a draft plan before it's
No,
signed
it's
off.
like you get what you get and you don't get upset. That's the rules.
Yeah. You wouldn't buy a garden shed that way,
No,
let
I
alone
know.
fund support for a family member. So, yeah, bits and pieces, like changes like that would make a real difference, I think, to people. But more than anything, it's that culture shift from something that currently gatekeeps resources to something that flags unmet need, you know? That's the mindset that's shifted.
Yeah, I know the cultural attitudes around invisible disabilities from my end is fucking shit, man. Like, all I want is like, I constantly say, and I want to remind everyone, like, your lived experience isn't the only one ever, and I need you to believe in things that aren't necessarily visible. And you know what? People experience things you actually have no idea about. And can we just all hold all of that in our hearts when we are dealing with maybe someone like me? And I want to ask you, like, don't bullshit me.
I won't, I promise. I'll give you an unvarnished answer.
Do you think, honestly, because we are so bad as a country at taking care of the communities that need it the most, do you think in your political lifetime things will improve?
Oh, yes. Yes, absolutely. Because in my experience, I actually think the Australian community, like people are actually generally great, you know, and want to do good things and support and help each other, right? I'm one of these people that believes that the natural setting of human beings, the vast majority of human beings, the natural like state of us is actually good.
Whoa.
You know, like
do you?
I really do, and the behaviour, the kind of the destructiveness, the selfishness, the all of these things that we see, they're not a natural product of human behaviour or something innate inside us. It's the result of conditioning by people in positions of power. People in the positions of power, whether it's politics, whether it's media, whether it's just people that, you know, occupy a position of power within a local kind of power structure. We are conditioned as a community to sometimes act and behave in these kind of negative ways. And one of the key tricks is that people in positions of power have become very effective at dehumanizing a particular group in our society, and then pitting the humanized group against the dehumanized group. So I actually think that is a product of the decisions made at that kind of political decision-making level particularly. And so the job is to replace those people with actual good humans that are willing to work with the community to achieve good things. Like the approach that we have taken as a team, as a Greens MP, as my, you know, collective kind of work team of fabulous human beings that I am lucky enough to work with. Overwhelmingly, our team is made up of women, and there are many fabulous neurodiverse and disabled members of that team. The approach that we have taken is to begin our work and ground that work in a response to the need of the community, and a belief that if we can use our resources and our position, unexpected position, like I was elected at 22.
Wild. That is wild.
I was unexpectedly catapulted into this space, and the team and myself made the decision that we were going to use this unexpected opportunity to blow the hinges off the doors to these rooms full of #powerful people and actually get results for the community and work with the power of the community to achieve things. And like that's an active decision that we made, and those are the kind of more people that we need in those decision-making spaces, and that will deliver the change we want to see. Like when you say, do I think change is possible within my lifetime? Like the power and the pride and the capacity that has developed in the disability community over the last 5 years is stunning, to the point where we have gone from, many of us gone from like, please don't, a mentality of not even a mentality, like an expectation, or not even an expectation. What's the word I'm looking for? Basically, a power dynamic is the word I'm looking for, where 10 years ago we achieved the NDIS's foundation. And I think many in places of political power believe the response of the disability community would be to go like, oh, thank you so much. We're just so grateful that you've done anything. And in fact, the very opposite has happened. We as a community have gone, no, this was the baseline.
Yeah, the bar is low. Like, come on.
Like the bottom of what we need. Like, you will not cut our plans. You will not kick us off. You will not put us under independent assessments. In fact, you will give us what we need. And while doing that, you will also get rid of ableism in employment spaces, education, healthcare. Now, there's still a huge, long way to go in that. I have every faith that we can get there together.
Look at him go! Senator Jordon Steele-John of the Greens, thank you very much for giving me your time and your energy and your heart and your skill. I see you. I see the work you're doing, and I appreciate you. Anything I can do to help you, I will. But thank you. Thank you very much.
No, thank you, Em. It's an absolute pleasure to chat with you, my friend. I will come back and do it any time, and I really look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you, my darling. Thank you very much.
This is Emsolation.
Oh, here she is back again, Lady McSicky-Sick. Thank you very much for joining us. If you're listening to this on Thursday, the day it comes out, you have one more day to get your ADHD submission into the inquiry, so please think about doing that. I'll make sure all the links go out in our newsletter today. I know it's tough, but I managed to do it the day, like today, which is the Wednesday, because I'm an ADHDer and I need a tight timeline to get motivated. My goodness, I'm delirious now. We'll be back next week. I'm sure my health will be with me. We need to discuss the Beyonce concert. We have so many things to debrief on now. Michael's been in London for a full week. And also, Extra will be out Tuesday as usual. Our AMA will be out for all our subscribers on Friday too. Have a wonderful weekend or week ahead, whenever you're listening. And we'll chat soon, my loves. Bye.
Like what you heard and want more? Emsolation is a totally independent, neurodivergent, female-led podcast, which you can help support by subscribing to Emsolation Extra. Get exclusive bonus episodes every Tuesday, question time with Em and Michael, pre-show meetings, videos of the podcast recording, pre-sale access to live events and discount merch, a weekly newsletter, and so much more. Help us by subscribing now or gift a subscription to someone you love at emsolation.supercast.com or get the link via Emsolation socials. Emsolation with Em Rusciano is recorded at Down the Hill Studios, hosted by Em Rusciano with Michael Lucas, executive produced by Benjamin Wasley, produced by Em Rusciano, edited by Ezekiel Fenn, socials by Em Rusciano, Benjamin Wasley, Lauren Miko, and Marcella Rusciano Barrow, with assistance from Jem Evans and Georgia Watts. Follow us on Instagram at Emsolation Podcast and join other Emsolators at the Emsolation group on Facebook. The answer is Harry Styles. Please take the time to share this podcast with a friend. Give us a 5-star rating and make sure you're following us on whatever podcast app you use by hitting the follow button. Thanks for listening, and we can't wait to chat with you again soon.